fairy magic from story to practice. And I love the idea of that. How did that first book come about?
That's actually one of my more recent ones. And
yes. We're going back to front, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. And as someone who's always been fascinated by stories, I've always been a talkative person. And I used to make stories up and things. So when I kind of started to find my way into magic, the people who mentioned things like R.J. Stewart about the way that the keys to magic, the keys to relationship with spirits, and the keys to understanding some of the magical traditions and the magical there's a particular word and I've lost it somewhere, but that the keys to the magic is often embedded in the symbols and the rhythms of the stories. And so I have spent many years exploring specific stories and general stories, and particularly I'm always fascinated by ones with the fair folk in them and the fairy queen. So the Scottish border ballads of Thomas the Rhymer and Tam Lin hold some really fascinating pieces, because when we start to listen and look at these tales as holding initiatory patterns, as holding guidance, then you can actually listen to, it's not the right word, you can draw out the pathway through the rhythms of those tales, through the journeys that the characters go on, through the symbols that are there. And one of the things that I'm very, very keen on, and this is why I teach, is not giving people this is how to do it, but rather showing and highlighting how to find instructions, how to find keys yourself. And for me, one of the big ways of doing that is through stories. I know other people do it with archaeology and with historical sources, but for me, the stories have been passed down, and the ones that continue, the ones that still grab us, are the ones that hold those pieces of magic, those nuggets. So with that book, what I wanted to do with Folktales, Fairies and Spirits, what I wanted to do was to illustrate how you can approach stories, not just the stories that I share with you, but the stories that you find in your own landscape, how to actually explore those and pull out the threads. So in there, I've got various bits of information this is offerings that they might like, or these are taboos that you might want to follow, and rules and what have you, and different ways of engaging that. But I've tried to show the workings out, show the process, so that other people can do that themselves with their local stories, because fairies aren't just, fairy is a term that's an umbrella term that is often used to describe a particular range of spirits. But you can find spirits of that ilk all over the world under different names with differences. And by exploring the stories of your landscape, wherever it is you are, you can get to know the spirits that are there, the fairy type spirits that are there, rather than following the rules that are specific to Ireland or specific to Wales.
Now, you mentioned fairies and spirits. Is there a difference? Are they separate things, or just two words to describe the same?
What I have found is, and this is probably illustrated beautifully by my plastic wand and the children's fairy wings that came with it at the time, that when you say fairy, people often think of the children's images or the flower fairies or Tinkerbell and things like that. They think of the kind of diminutive post-Victorian concept. We're starting to kind of broaden that out a bit more, but it evokes a particular thing. Now, for me, the term encompasses a broader range of spirits. It's the folkloric spirits, the elves as well, and all the different sizes, if you like. But they come underneath the umbrella of spirits. So all the fairies are spirits, but not all the spirits are fairies.
Clear as mud. Yep, brilliant. That kind of sums up the fairy world, I think, doesn't it?
It does. So one of the ways, and I'll try and keep this brief, but I've wrestled for many years with, as a philosopher, like, how do we categorize what is a fairy? How do we categorize that? And I came to the conclusion personally that this is a bracket of type of spirits. This is sort of a family of spirits, if you like, an extended family of spirits that energetically sit very close to the physical world. And so if humans are the energies, we live in the energies that are like physical and emotional, mental and spiritual, say, broadly speaking, then fairies kind of overlap. They brush up against the physical and then overlap up to the emotional, mental, spiritual, and whatever's next on that. Whereas something like an angel, you might encounter, and this is just as an example, other people have different definitions, would occupy a different range in the spectrum. So most of those would be sort of more the information layers and things like that. A god is bigger and covers more of them. So that it's kind of this spectrum. And the fairy folk are these spirits that are very, very close to the manifest world. Very, very close. And sometimes they slip over into it, which is where we get, some of the human fairy interaction stories that we get.